Welcome to Working Title Episode 002. I'm Ryan Fring with The BitLife Show, and this week we talk with Julia Smith and Chris Moehr, who are producers. This is another one of our Princess Night, the making of type episode number 2 in a series of 6 or 7 that we'll be doing. And where'd they go? Did they leave? We talked to Chris and Julia about all the things that go into producing and the thankless effort that they have to put in order for anything to happen, because without producers, you're just a kid filming your brother in a basement. And that took a turn for the worse, so start the show. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, hello, everybody. I am Chris Moehr, probably best known to this group as owner and producer at Firmament Films. And you guys are all my best buddies helping us make something awesome. So,
What's Firmament Films?
Firmament Films started as a small collective of people who just like to make movies.
That sounds very Madison.
A
Small collective.
And it turned into, at times, 35, 40 people getting together on a weekend to make something interesting. And we've put our engine together to make something really big that we've been working on for the last year and a half called the Princess Night. And then every now and then we do something a little bit smaller with fewer people and fewer crew and get together and make something in a weekend and hopefully show it off on YouTube.
So how did you start the company or get involved? I don't think I actually know that story.
All right. Origin story. Here we go.
Yeah,
okay.
Make
so
it
Now, did it start with your parents dying?
Yes.
Was there...
Twice.
And then you put spandex
yes.
on.
Was it your fault that your uncle got killed in a robbery?
Somebody picked him up out of a gutter.
Yeah, oddly, none of that happened.
No
actually.
kryptonite? Nothing?
No
That's really
kryptonite
unfortunate.
either.
This is the worst origin story ever.
Yeah. All right, so I'll trace it back to a used CD store in Sheboygan, Wisconsin,
This is getting good.
where I would go there with my friend Eric and literally watch him peruse CDs for hours. I could never do it. I would just sit back and let
What
it happen.
year was that? A CD?
92,
All right,
93
nice.
maybe?
Is that like an MP3?
It's similar to that, except
Same letters?
more awesome. The sound is better.
Oh.
You probably didn't know that, though.
This is like vinyl.
Yeah. So Eric and I
one
ran
sounds
into
better.
somebody in Sheboygan. His name is Ron Hayes, and he did wedding videos. And he was also a CD connoisseur. And he and Eric just started chatting, and we would see him there all the time. And he asked us if we wanted to be in a movie sometime. We didn't know what that meant. So, we were 17 at the time. We told my parents, yeah, we met this random stranger. He wants us to be in a movie. So they were very concerned.
We wound up in his
why.
garage.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of
Taking our
did
shirts
actually. So our friend Ron introduced us to the filmmaking world, and I worked with him on wedding videos all through college, which is great supplementary income. And then after college, didn't do a lot for a few years. Reconnected with some old friends who told me about the 48-hour film festival. I hadn't made anything in between the time between high school and then, but that reignited that passion, that fun I had for movies that we would just dork around with way back then. And the people I'm around are just kind of creative people. Everybody kind of latched onto it, and next thing you know, we're making stuff.
Yeah, so you mentioned, too, Princess Night. We've talked to TC and stuff. Where did that come out of, with you, for you?
As in, how did I find TC, or how did we find PK?
How did you find TC and then
So the
PK decide to make a ridiculously, like a full-length feature film instead of a short?
There's a lot of ridiculous.
Complete with spinoff on youtube.com/Trollblave.
Blave.
Every episode we plug the Trollblave.
So the first year we did the 48, it was, I want to say it was 2011, maybe. No, it was 2010, I think it was. And I think we had 10 people, and I shot it, directed it, edited it, and produced it myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
How many people?
7 or 8, maybe more. Maybe it was
That's
10.
not bad.
No, but I mean, it was a complete learning experience.
And you survived.
Yeah. Well, I was in the edit suite on Sunday, like I couldn't keep my eyes open. Everybody's like, "We're gonna make it, right?" I'm like, "If I stay awake, we're
Yeah.
gonna make it." But we didn't have anybody else with any other skills.
Sure.
It was just a bunch of actors and me, who knew a little bit about post and just enough to figure it out.
Actors.
So after the first year, we said, "God, that was a lot of fun." I mean, our movie sucked, but it was a lot of fun. So how do we do this better next year? And I took a step back and I thought, well, let me organize this and let's see who wants to come play. TC was a friend of somebody else who was involved the year before, somebody I didn't know at all. So TC came in the second year, and his energy and his ideas, I mean, he just hit the ground running. Somebody asked him if he wanted to just be involved, and he showed up, and he didn't take over, but you could tell right away he was so creative. So we gave him a little bit of a role. He did some of the writing. I think he did a lot of the writing, actually, come to think of it, even though it wasn't meant to. And he actually told us about PK that year. It was just kind of an idea in his head.
Wow.
I'm not completely sure if the script was there that year or the year after. It might have been I do think it was the first year, though, where he actually sang us some of it and told us about the script and the idea. And, at the time...
And you weren't scared away already.
Well, to be honest, I kind of blew him off because I'm like, here it is. It's Saturday night, 10:30. TC's talking about this great full-length feature. And I'm like, we're in the middle of a 48 here. I was like, I don't even want to hear it right now. But so many people were captivated by it. And then the next summer, I'm sure you guys heard, he did it as a stage show in Burlington. And, he said he understood the characters better. He learned who they really were. It helped kind of flesh the idea out. And then we had a failure within Firmament Films where we shot a short for a week and we came away from it. The audio was terrible. It was completely unsalvageable. And we were sitting back figuring out, okay, how do we avoid this in the future? And somebody goes, I don't know, how about we do something that doesn't require any audio? Like what? I don't know, like an animation or a puppet show or something.
Who was this person, and can we smack him? I mean, no, I love doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do legitimately love doing it. I don't know what the hell I'm talking
so
about.
It was
Sorry.
a week or so later, TC comes back to me and said, what if we did this as a puppet show?
I'll tell you what. No, I won't.
That's the end of the joke.
Yeah, and we've been very open about the idea. If we could wind back the clock 2 years and decide if this was a good idea, this was probably too much for us to bite off. We're gonna make it, but we're learning, exponentially. And because Backflip is on board, we would have been stuck. We would have been absolutely stuck without Backflip. So we got totally lucky.
Aw, thanks.
Oh, you can say that. I mean, how true that is, because to our aspirations for what we think is a really, really great story and what deserves to be produced at the highest level could not be done with sub-level of filmmakers. You set the bar and you got to stay there. And we set the bar really, really high in the first couple scenes we shot. And without the help of everything that is going on here at Backflip, we'd never sustain that level. Or it would take 12 years instead of 9.
Right.
Yeah.
So
you gotta shave off. I think we can shave off a couple.
That's the goal. Well, TC and I had this great conversation coming back from filming. I think it was in the winter last year. He turned to me in the car on the way home and said, "How many people do you think you see in the credits when you watch an end movie?" I'm like, I don't know. 100, 200. He goes, it's usually 250 to 400 people you see in the credits. That's great, TC. That's more useless knowledge you've imparted on me. That's great.
Thank you.
He said, no, stop and think about that. There's 12 people in the studio today who are doing the job of 250 people. And that's when it hit me just how massive it is that we're undertaking. But we're not going to cut it in half. We're going to give it everything we have. It's just taking a while and a lot of dedication.
And we'll just list our names multiple times so that we can get to 250.
Yes,
Right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're actually, with all of our Kickstarter donators, we're going to be okay. We should be okay on the length of credits. I mean, those are all very, very valuable people too, who financed and funded in tiny little micro increments. Had their puppets made. I see a couple puppets sitting around the table right now. So.
Is it me? I'm confused. Oh no, it's these two guys.
Wait,
No. I basically am the troll. We discussed
Different definition
this, right?
of that word there, Jeff.
We bought our way into the production. We bought some puppets, and we were like, well, I guess you should probably shoot.
Yeah.
All right.
He did just call us puppets. So
It was so weird. You paid money
do your
and then
job,
you
man.
were, oh, and
Which
I'm also
gets
gonna
back
help.
to the point of producing. And also with us today, we have Julia, who's with us every day.
Every day.
Who
Yay.
is also a producer with the Princess Knight and Firmament Films. So how did you get connected
my
with
gosh.
Chris? And
I remember this story. Chris emailed me and said, and this was in...
did you guys know each other? Or?
Yes. So how long... So Chris's wife, Jessica, plays volleyball with me.
I didn't like Julia the first time I met her, by the way.
Oh, really?
No.
Oh yeah, I thought she hated me.
I suddenly feel like we should
Well,
not
that's
have
a good
had
reason.
you guys sitting that close to each other.
I would have... You know that's not true.
Oh, I know. I think I was intimidated at the time. I'm like, this. I said to Jess, I'm like,
Nice.
Julia's really got her act together. I'm like, I'm a little intimidated here.
I don't like people who have their act
She
together.
had it all pulled together, yes. So
You're not going to like me in 3 months.
I think I've been playing volleyball for like 10 years with Jessica and Chris Scholes, who's also on Princess Night, and then Chris.
So I was waving whoever's watching. I'm assuming
Jeff's
Chris is
waving.
going to watch it at some point.
Yes, you probably
Sorry.
will. Chris,
I'll
hi,
cut
Chris.
that out.
So Chris Moehr sends me an email and says, hey, do you and Kurt want to be in the 48-hour film festival this year? We're making a movie in 48 hours. I'm like, sure, that sounds like a lot of fun. Of course. And so that was the year we did Filling In. That was 2012.
Mm-hmm.
So we did Filling In, and I actually got to act, which I was hugely honored because I was happy to do anything. And so that was really fun.
That was a good size and pivotal role, too.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was really, really a great time. And then I met TC and Candy. That was the weekend. Like, they came in, shot, and then went back to Burlington to do the musical, which was crazy. And TC was writing the script in Burlington Friday night while his show was going on.
The script for the 48.
Yeah, the script for the
He
48.
to be clear, he
Yes.
wrote the script for the 48 while he was actually the director live play of the Princess
Correct.
Night. And he
Side
wrote,
note, it tanked.
yes,
Because the director wasn't paying attention. Yeah.
Yes. So then after that, did we do Roxy? How did I end up
that wasn't
becoming
that
an
early,
AD?
was it?
No.
That was a
maybe
year or two
it was a
ago.
year later.
That was a year or two later.
I think a year later.
The noise.
Well,
The Noise. So you guys asked.
how did you become an AD? It's because you showed up on the first film and really showed up.
Yeah.
I mean, Julia was a presence in what we were doing. Like I said, she had her act together. You know, we gave her lines, we gave her her character. She asked good questions, and then didn't flake the performance at all. I mean, so she was an impressive on the set. And like I said, my history with her is she's really got her act together. We need people like that. You know, people who are dedicated, people who are excited. And I said, do you want to be a part of this? She said, of course I want to be a part of this. That's the kind of people you want to surround yourself with. So that kind of positive energy we'll take every day.
Yeah. So then we did. Thank you, Chris. I had a chance to AD. I think Rox. So a year later, we do the 48 again. 2013, The Noise. And so then I was the assistant director for that. And then that was the year you guys asked me to do it for PK. And the story there is like, well, I've only been an assistant director for a 48, and you guys want me to be an assistant director for a feature-length film. Are you sure I'm qualified? And then I remember processing and going, well, of course you're going to do this, because if you pass it up, you're going to feel like an idiot. So
I believe.
So then I said yes.
I said something similar to like, Julie, you realize nobody's qualified to do this right now.
Yes, I think you
so-
did. Yeah, I think you guys were really supportive and wonderful. And then what came of it, and this is the part where if you're listening, tune in. This is where if you have a dream, you need to try to go get it, but you're not just going to get it handed to you. So then I've been making movies on the weekends with my friends, and now it's worked into a full-time job here producing at Backflip Films, which has changed my life in so many ways, more than anybody could know how wonderful it's been. So
Julia is a Firmament Films success story. There's no
I
question
am.
about it.
I am in the Firmament Films. I'm like the poster child testimony for
You
following
can
your
do it,
dreams.
and this is how.
Right. And it's sort of what the same thing happened with Jeff Rowe, which we'll have another discussion probably, but that's also
Some
true for
point.
Jeff.
Yes.
But that's
With the Puppet Man.
With the Puppet Man.
Puppet Man.
We'll talk then on mine. We'll wait for me to be the center. I don't want to take over.
Or now that you've taken all the airtime.
Yeah.
Well, I know. I don't want to delay us from going any
Oh,
further. We're just talking about myself and how amazing I am.
I want to hear it.
Well, who?
I want to hear it.
Nah, maybe
That's the little kid
later.
inside
was
of Chris.
That was.
I
That was
want to
that.
hear it, guys.
I want to hear
I
them
wanna
all.
talk
Got a
about
hold
it.
of the.
Well,
Why don't you get into my van?
we met Jeff as part of the 48-hour film festival, but not as
Yeah.
a teammate,
No.
as our mortal enemy.
As a mortal
Yes.
enemy.
I mean,
Our
Jeff's,
greatest competition.
Jeff's team made great stuff, and
We did.
We didn't know each other until.
And modest, too.
Jeff, do you remember where we met face to face for the first time?
I was trying to remember that.
I can give you this answer.
I know TCs. I don't remember when we met. When did we meet?
At the filming of PK. Of
Was
the
it?
stage show of PK.
Yes, when we were going to shoot the actual taping of
so
it.
TC
Yes.
asked us to do a recording of the live show of PK. So we showed up with 5 cameras, and I'm in the back of the studio, shooting with the 300 millimeter, and next to me is this guy in a beret shooting on a 50 millimeter.
Nothing's really changed, can't you tell?
And I'm thinking we should game plan because we're shooting the exact same angle. I'm like, hey, what are you here for? What are you doing? Oh, well, TC. Okay, so your stuff's mixed in with our stuff. Okay, all right. I'm Chris. I'm Jeff. Hey, why do you look familiar? Oh yeah, we compete against you in the 48.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're that creepy guy in that one film.
Yeah, I always am. I wasn't always creepy. It's just been like a more recent
almost since you were born, right?
Yeah, just since I was
Yeah.
born. Yeah, because I had met TC like a couple months prior, like just a couple, maybe a couple months before that at the Burlington Theater for an improv show with our mutual friend Dan, who's also helping out with the production and all that stuff. So that's where I met him, and then that's why I knew him, and then he asked if I wanted to help shoot, and then that's when I came out and I met you guys, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And if we're gonna hashtag this show to try to get more people to watch it, go with 48-hour film success stories, because this is all of us.
Wait, is that
know
the
each other.
hashtag 48-hour film success stories?
Exactly.
Yes.
I
Is
can't
there a
spell
limit?
success.
Is there a limit on hash?
Yeah, I'm 100%
There's
sure it's
no
a hashtag.
limit. There's no limit.
100%
Really?
sure. Yep. 100%
Can we
sure it's a
can we
hashtag.
get? Can we look it up? Do
There's-
something above.
There it
Well,
is.
you always ask for it to
Here
be up
comes.
above,
Yeah.
and then
Okay, down
Hashtag
below.
success.
Put it down below.
There's
all
no
that part
limit.
of the
It can
screen.
you can have like
Hashtag's on my hand.
There's no
No!
limit.
And now I have to zoom in. It's not 4K. I told you we should have used 4. No.
Yeah, but that's how we all know each other. I mean, that's how I met Backflip. Well, I mean, our connection came through PK, and you guys reached out to us. But the first time I sat down with the Backflip crew, do you guys remember this?
Yeah, I think we told it on the second episode.
Oh,
a little bit about
all right.
the story.
Well, then I'll
but
make this story short.
Give us your perspective.
Well, my
Maybe
pers-
we were way off.
That's
Right.
true.
My perspective is TC asked me to come in and meet with you guys because you were supporters of the movie and we're local and we should meet. So
And did he mention that I knew him?
I think
Kind of went to well, I was gonna say kind of grew up with him, but we went to school together and worked together.
no. At the time, I don't know if he mentioned that. He might have, but it wasn't the first thing in the forethought of my mind. So I got here, sat down, came into the studio, and we were talking about 48 hours, and you guys started talking about the last 48 you participated in, and you started describing it, and I just lit up like a Christmas tree in my head. I don't want to look like outwardly, but I'm like, this is the movie.
Pretty bad, I'll tell you.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we didn't know if you were sick or
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the movie that I was showing our 48-hour team members, new team members that we were trying to emulate. I was absolutely in love with, and I always called it the cat movie. What's the name of it?
The cat
missing.
movie.
I was gonna say, isn't that what you guys
Missing.
call it?
That's what I call it.
Yeah, the cat movie, which was so well produced. I loved the music to it. So I would show, this is our standard. This is what we're going for. And when I sat down, I'm like, you guys made this? I fangirled. I couldn't help it.
I guess you could technically say, because I did the same thing with 7 Year Wish.
That was a good movie.
That was the movie that I know of you. Like, that's where I knew, like, that's where I met, or not met, that's where I was like, oh, this is Firmament, this is TC. Like, I knew people from that movie. And then that's when I met TC, it was the whole, like, I gave him a big hug because I realized, oh, it was Death, and I loved that one. But I used 7 Year Wish for me and the ones we were doing as my basis. So it's funny that for me it was like, no, Firmament is the one. That's what we want to go after. And
So now we
Firmament's
have to do one and then point at Jeff, and then we create an infinite loop.
Bingo.
Yes.
Yeah.
in which case then I go win, and I just walk
Just
away.
a
I don't
black
bother.
hole will
And it
form.
never
Let's,
stops. But
let's talk more about producing. I think it's often misunderstood, and I think now too in Hollywood what they want to do is they want to separate financial producing from actual creative producing. So in the credits, instead of, because sometimes executive producers are just financial producers, but sometimes, like J.J. Abrams, executive producers also have some other kind of creative input. So what excites you guys about producing, and what do you especially like to do about it? And maybe describe a little bit of it too, for all those people at home who just cut that.
You
End
guys
of
give me
thought.
so
They're
much
all at
work.
home.
For
So-
our moms,
we just
tell
don't
the
cut
moms
anything.
at
I know.
home what
Right.
producing is.
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll kick it off from the top here. Like you said, Ryan, producing it's sometimes hard to describe even, and sometimes I feel guilty describing it as well, because a lot of it is oversight, but it's also making the right decisions from the top level. So my job within PK is to make sure we're continuing to go in the right direction, to make sure the right people are in the right places, the assets are in the right places, we have the right funding to get the things we need when we need them, to check in with people for their primary responsibilities. As a team in PK, for instance, TC is in charge of directing. We don't ask him to be in charge of the puppet assets. Julia is in charge of making sure that people are signed up for their roles, things are communicated to. Everybody has their own direct role. So part of the social job I have to do is checking in with people, making sure they're comfortable in those jobs, making sure they feel valued in those jobs. And some soft skills, like making sure people are happy. Like, for instance, we might shoot for an entire weekend, and people will be yelling. People will have needs that need to be met immediately. And I want everybody to know that even though they're getting yelled at, sometimes they're still a very valuable part of the team. So
I'm very selfish.
well, it's
Jeff needs his
Yes.
own.
Yeah.
Jeff needs his own dedicated producer.
Right.
I didn't think we'd have to talk about that
Right.
tonight,
Guys,
but
I only
Stanley,
asked for 3 bags of M&Ms and a hot pack. Not a hot pocket, a hot pack. That's what you guys got confused. You're like, I heard him say hot pocket. No, it's a hot packet. No.
Julia, can we get them both next time? I just
we
don't want to
can.
deal with this.
We can try.
I just want to get a hot packet.
A hot packet?
Yeah.
You put it in the oven and then you
Oh, just anything?
anything. It didn't have to be something
But
specific.
you wanted a specific type of oven to heat it up in.
It had to be a Kenmore 6000
In blue.
in TARDIS blue.
M&Ms.
Yes,
Oh,
please,
TARDIS
Ryan.
blue.
TARDIS blue.
Hey, maybe they'll send us one.
Oh my gosh.
Kenmore?
Do you,
Jeff
you don't
needs-
watch Doctor Who, do you?
I
Do
do
you
not.
watch Doctor Who?
No,
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
have time.
Maybe it's a producer thing. They're
It's-
like, we're
We're too busy
taking care
producing.
of everybody else.
I
They
used to
can't
get
entertain.
so annoyed by people who are like, I don't watch TV. And I'll be honest, it's not that I don't watch TV. I just haven't made time for it.
Yeah.
You do have to make time.
Yeah, I've gotten
Yeah,
interested
make
in other
time.
hobbies and things. And, and then maybe that's, something a producer does is we've got our fingers in things kind of all the time
Yes.
watching, watching
Right.
things move. And it's confusing to people because a lot of times it looks like we're not doing anything. But, for instance, I'm watching the financials. I'm talking with our sponsors, our Kickstarter contributors, all that kind of big picture stuff. And then when we shoot, as probably most of you can attest, and I'm trying to do this even more and more these days, is when we actually shoot, my job is to step back and to let people do their job
Yep.
and not go, I don't know if I like that camera angle. Well, you know what? Trust the person running the camera. Or I'm not sure if that was the greatest take. Well, trust the actors and the directors. And if I think there's an issue there, I'll pull somebody aside and go, hey, I think we're running pretty smoothly here. It's something I'm a little concerned about. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
As opposed to, wow, that sucked.
Well, I think that's part of why
Sorry.
producers can get a bad rap. It's because when you're on
Jeff.
set, you don't like a top level producer doesn't have a lot to do, and that's why they have other roles of production manager, assistant director, all these other roles that do things during the day and tell people what to do during the day. Really, the producer doesn't have a lot to do during the day, but since we are such a small crew, it's like, all right, Chris, you're gonna run audio or you're
Yeah.
gonna do this,
Which
you're
is
gonna
what I
help
do.
out
That's
with,
a real thing.
Yeah.
light and things like that. So.
And I love that stuff. And that was another, okay, coming from that first 48 where I realized we need to specialize, we need to differentiate, people need specific jobs, I got to step back. That's one of my skills is I can organize and I get people done. But when you do that, you step away from the art. And I didn't realize that for a year or so that I felt disconnected. Like the first couple movies we did, I looked at him and I'm like, I didn't really have a part of that. TC created that, and the actors created that, and our set design people created that, and our catering people actually fed people and made them happy. And it's like, how involved am I with this? And it takes an understanding of that job to take a step back
Yeah.
and go, you're part
But
of
I
all
think-
of that.
I think one thing,
Yeah.
I'll let you jump in.
yeah.
I was gonna say one thing we've learned, like on our small team, is as we've gained crew and as we've gained people, that may be the initial feeling, but then you start kind of looking at it from the outside and you're like, this is awesome. I didn't have to, okay, a bunch of filmmakers, people who like film, we all started with like a camera and our friends, and you do everything, including getting yourself in front of the camera sometimes, like right now.
Yeah.
And
ourselves.
but
Talk about there's like a 40
yeah,
person crew
well,
over there, guys.
apart from all the crew, hey guys,
Hey, everybody.
hey.
Keep it down.
Yeah, they're too they're too loud.
They're keeping the camera so still tonight.
But
it's
like
amazing.
Ryan and I, when we're working on projects, it's kind of cool to look at them and be like, huh, that's a really cool video. I didn't have to do anything on that one because I was doing a different thing, but like there is some, once you get past that initial
It's a growth
wow,
level. Yep.
is it's just cool to like, okay, I had a part of that, but I didn't have to do everything, and because of that, it's better.
Yeah.
Sorry. I cut
So
you
I've
off
been trying
before.
to, let me just add one thing there.
Sure.
I've been trying to take that opportunity to grow within some of the other
I'm
skills.
gonna check a camera.
So what I've been focusing on is learning other things where I'm not the primary on it. Like, for instance, I've been spending a lot of time with Jordan over the last year, learning how to light, try to think through all of those things, talking to Corey about what sound looks like. Because on a mid-sized team, which is what I consider us, on a mid-sized team as a producer, I like to think that I could step in and play a role if something ever happened. Like if I had to DP, which is why we did Roxy.
Yep.
I DP'd Roxy. I could if we had to. Edit, I can edit. I might not be the best at it, but I can edit if we have to.
Sure.
So that's one of the things where even though I step back as part of the production, I'm taking that opportunity to learn all these little things so I can, if nothing else, understand what everybody else is doing.
Right, and I feel like that's definitely key, is just to at least have an experience of doing all, so that way you can, when you're not doing it, then okay, the camera guy's off there. Like, I know what the camera guy has to do in order to make it, in order to get stuff. But it's better to have an understanding. That's why, like, I agree.
And Julie's
bring
the same
nothing
way.
to the
I've seen her
table.
step into so many things that,
Right.
I
think so. The two reasons, the first reason I like producing so much is it feeds my interest in doing a variety of things, because I think as a producer, you're not going to do the same things every time. Princess Night is very different from the 48s, and producing in a video production company here at Backflip is very different from working on 48s or shooting Princess Night. So I really enjoy that on any given day I'm doing something different. That's what's really exciting about producing for me. And then, so it's interesting because I switched careers. I totally switched jobs, and so I'm really learning a lot more coming into this, where I don't have experience with, and maybe I've been blessed with having really awesome people. Where if someone's like, we gotta run sound, I'd be like, I don't know if I can run sound, what that means. So then I'm putting a lot of faith into my ability to bring the really good, reliable people onto a team, so I don't have to worry about that. And part of why I left my job and came to this job is that all of my creativity was gone. And then we'd show up on the weekends and we'd help with Princess Night, and I was contributing in a way that helped people be creative, and in my way, that was my creativity. My creativity is the ability to bring really awesome people in to create a project. That's what I have a really good skill set. I can see where needs are and say, this is what we need to make this better. And that's how I'm creative. And so I do see myself, and for the Unpossessors as well as High Neighbor, like so much of my creativity that came out through that. So it's a little bit of a different perspective. And I'm learning a lot more now here at Backflip, so I can run camera now. I do, so that is safer. But I felt like the Unpossessors for me was a Milwaukee 48, which was an interesting experience that you and I've talked a lot about. In that TC and I were producing that, and I think I'm always also end up sort of being the assistant director, and then those things morph. But what was cool about the Unpossessors for me was I put a lot of trust in people, and I didn't know a lot of the tech stuff, so I was like, you're all going to do this. And up until the end, which was a rendering issue, it was a really great production. Like, our DP and our director had to work it out, and they just went into a room, figured it out, walked back in, and worked it out. And so that was and it went really well. So that was pretty cool.
Something you touched on before, you're talking about how, I just lost my train of thought. I'm going to go to the end of the train of thought.
The caboose, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody had said to me, and I'm pretty sure it was a backhanded compliment, said, you really have an uncanny ability to surround yourself with good people.
Isn't that a producer's job?
And that is a producer's job, but
Makes the producer look better.
If I recall, I'm not going to say where it came from, because you could probably back it into somebody, but it made me smile, because it's true. In some way, I've been blessed with a lot of really, really great people, and that's why I look at the social component of producing is, you got to keep these people happy. People want to be here, whether they're volunteer or whether you're paying them. I mean, you guys know this as employers. You got to keep your people happy and engaged, and that's what I take seriously as a producer.
Yeah.
I think something else
The booze does help.
that people maybe, and I don't know because I've never had a processing time afterwards, but one of the things that's really apparent to me too is when you're producing it or you're a team leader for a 48, you're really responsible for everybody in terms of safety. And I think that's really important to be like, do we have a first aid kit? Because nobody else is thinking about those things because they have their assigned roles. And so who's doing that? Well, the producer is. Well, we need something. Well, everybody's working, so you have to go get it. Or
it's funny you bring that up, actually, because we had an injury on PK a few weeks ago, and Julia was Johnny on the spot. Like the person who got injured didn't even know where they were by the time Julia had a tourniquet on. So that's important stuff.
Who was that got injured?
Oh God. I think it might have been me.
What was happening?
Was that a producer?
Was
that
it a safe set?
Should we cut to the footage?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm pretty sure-
Hey, yeah.
Oh, that was brutal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. That's the first time I've seen that, actually.
You know what?
So,
Future Jeff is kind of a dick.
Yeah.
Because he's the one that put that edit in.
Future Jeff.
Current Jeff
you guys,
is not even
you
doing
guys were talking about trust and taking care of everything. That is terrifying to me, and I mean I love that we've brought you on to handle all that stuff. We've done that in the past, but thinking of having to be the point person for everybody, at some point, or at least the department heads at some point, and to be able to troubleshoot everybody's problems, at some point, and at the top, and to be in charge of that, like that's a huge responsibility. And for me, as my creative, we're kind of talking about where we get our creative fix, to be able to focus on one small thing. I mean, I'm looking at this audio board and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would love to just play sounds on these microphones and figure out, cool things that I could get. But, how did the soundboard get here? How did the mics get here? How did any of this come together? Well,
Julia
that's the
put it
team.
here.
And
Yes.
literally, Julia put this here. And
did.
so,
It was over there in storage.
And then I carried it over.
well,
here.
and while I'm not, not playing around with that right now, that's what we get to do now, and we're so spoiled. And on set was maybe the first time that really happened, and it was a figuring out process where we got on set, and because we had a lot of experience, we'd be asked a lot of questions. But at some point, I was like, I am not the person. Like somebody else figure it out. Like this stuff has to get figured out beforehand by this person or that person or this group. And then once we kind of reasserted who's in charge of what, we figured it out a little bit better, and it's been phenomenal there. And we've kind of taken a lot more of that into our business with bringing Julia on, and it's been great because it's kind of like being a kid again. And I don't want to say like you're the mom of the company because you're a woman, but like I feel safe because Julia has everything. She's taking care of everything for us, and
Ryan,
really there for us.
We would have been dead without Julia. I'm pretty sure.
Ryan-
that incident
guys.
that happened on set,
right.
heads would have been chopped
No.
off. It would have just been horrible.
Ryan needs a lot of nurturing.
That's right.
I remember.
can we get a timestamp
yeah.
here? Julia can put this in her review for
Yes.
the year.
Yes,
Just,
that would be great.
He's tried to make all of us moms at one
Yeah.
point, and it just
Well, and a shout out to Erin,
Right.
our second mom, and Norali, our first mom. They all just happen to be women. But anybody who can organize and loves to keep things, running smoothly and,
Yes.
and working together, that's
my skill set.
yeah,
And you kind of
it's
alluded to
awesome.
it before. It's the heavy crown of decision, because as the producer
that-
level, you've got to
I
make
feel
calls.
like there was during High Neighbor, it was probably Saturday night because you were like shooting for like a billion hours, and I remember I think I heard my name called from 3 different people, and I know you were. I think this was when we were shooting the chainsaw with Candy. I know you were also doing something, and I'm like, they're like Julia. I'm like, okay, now I have to make some decisions, and I was doing something else. And I'm like, you need to hold that thought.
Prioritize.
I'm
yeah.
going to be, and, go talk to Chris, I think, was probably something.
you're like, leave your brother alone.
Right,
Yeah.
And sometimes
I'm
it's
like, I don't
also
want
about,
to.
like, as you said, taking care of people, but also, the director came to me with some concerns, and then I had to talk to him about that, and then I talked to you about that, and, so it's also about making sure how things are running. And,
Yeah, a lot was going on
reading.
at that
There was
time.
a lot going on.
Because that was, and I don't do this often, but that was a point in High Neighbor. I stepped forward and said, cut. We're done. Next scene. And TC looked at me and he goes, good call.
Yeah.
I go, good. Because I don't like to play that role.
No.
We were managing the minutia and running out of time,
Yeah.
and we had enough of it. And it worked. And we got into the end.
Well,
it
and
was
that's
there.
so that's another point you bring up. We've talked about this before, like with the creative process. What defines the end of a painting, or whatever. Like, I think a lot of times with us and our daily work, it's a deadline. The deadline defines the end of it, because we could take a finished product and say, why don't you tell me what we could fix about this? And anyone could point something out about a finished product that could be fixed. And the producer kind of says, okay, that's
it.
enough. Let's move on to the next thing. And that's really helpful because, you kind of get to work creatively with, whatever you want to come up with within certain constraints, and then you're done with that scene, move on to the next thing. And then we get to the deadline. Okay, done editing, done working on it, done tweaking at it.
So let's go down that path, actually. Let's talk about game day. which, in case not everybody has seen it,
The link's down below.
And the video is currently playing.
Right there. Here it
Wait a
comes.
second.
So Game Day, a musical that Firmament Films did, actually won Best Film in Madison. We had a crew of 34 people, and undertaking writing and creating a musical in 48 hours is
It's huge.
It's almost
huge.
impossible.
It's doable at a certain production value. It's really, really hard at the level that Firmament's used to, and we're not willing to mail it in. So going along the way with what John was saying before, we have a schedule that I have mapped out going into the weekend. This happens at 8 o'clock. This happens at 9. This happens at 1 in the morning. This happens. So the associate director has that. I have that. The principals have that, and we can all look at it. But the thing is the producer has to know when that no longer makes sense. You go, we're shooting at 8 in the morning, because the assistant director came to me and said, all right, 8 o'clock, we're shooting. And I said, what are we shooting? Well, the movie, the musical, right? Right. We're going to need music for that. Production schedule
Everything
completely blown.
done.
So I pulled everybody into a room and said, we need to create a plan. What's our plan? I'm not saying I have the plan. I'm saying we need to create a plan. Let's talk about with the people who are actually going to be filming, who are going to be singing, who are going to be writing. So we pulled the writers in, pulled the composer in, pulled the DP in, and said, how do we want to go at this? And we came up with a plan. But it's that oversight of looking at it and going, everything's going to plan, but at this point we're going to deviate because it's what we have to do, or this is where we're going to cut because of what we have to do. Because, you know, as John was saying, you can manage that, and if you give latitude to an artist, they'll take as much latitude as you give them to make it perfect.
Right.
But you don't want to stifle the creative process either. And that's why, as you know now too,
Right.
being that producer is straddling that line
Yeah.
between getting it done, making it awesome. Where do they meet in the middle?
Right. And some of those things on the unpossessors with timelines, like that was what was, for me, being new at it. And I think it's, you know, you could talk about our successes, but mistakes is how you learn. And for the unpossessors, for us, was the wheels started coming off, and I may be being a little dramatic, the wheels started coming off the production on Sunday when our musician didn't start composing until it was 1 in the afternoon. And at that point, I
When
should
did you have to turn in?
7 p.m. So, you know, we were, and it's so pushing, and then get it. And then when we're there, it didn't all record. And so, and then we had to make the decision. And at the end of the day, the outcome would have been the same, because we would have not turned in something that was not Firmament quality. We would have turned it in late, and that's what we ended up doing, because at the end, no sound recorded.
We should maybe set the table
You
what
know.
that all means for people who are
Sure.
probably not in the inside of it. So for the Milwaukee 48-hour Film Festival, Firmament wasn't going to do it. We've never done Milwaukee. We've only done Madison, and we won Madison. So it's like, we won. Why are we going to go play in somebody else's yard?
How did we even start?
I'll be honest, the ball got rolling somewhere.
Okay,
and
I
it
don't
just
know
kept
where-
rolling, and
yeah.
suddenly people were on board with it. But
Part of it was an interest in having all-female actress
that's
cast.
where we went.
That was, okay,
So,
yes.
so I had said, if we're going to do Milwaukee, we need something different. We're not going to just go. This is going to sound egotistical, but we're a finely tuned machine. We're not going to run our bulldozer into some other competition. We've won Madison the last 3 years. Why are we going to go hit Milwaukee? Well, what if we did it differently? And the idea came up with, what if we do an all-female cast? I'm like, I love it. That sounds great. Let's go girl power. So that idea started happening. Well, at the same time, John Klein came to me and said, I have this idea of shooting the entire movie on the road. We're going to leave. We'll shoot it on the road coming back from wherever we want to be. I want you to produce it. John's been helping us with PK, with equipment, Milwaukee production. Oh my God.
Yep, Milwaukee production rental.
Yeah, I'm like, why is this eluding me? Milwaukee
No,
production
this
rental.
came up the last
MKE?
time.
Yeah.
MKE.
Yeah, that's I was
Milwaukee.
going
Yeah.
through the letters and it didn't
Yeah.
work out in my
Production
head.
rental.
So anyway, John's been providing stuff for us. He's been a huge help to Firmament, and he came to me with this idea. So I wanted to support him. So that's how we ended up with 2 Firmament teams. Julia producing one, I was producing the other. What we did was we ended up taking all of the production people, and that ended up being on my team.
Yep.
Like all of the post-production, all of the people who have experience in day 2 activities. Julia's team ended up with all the people who
All
have
the creatives.
The creatives with day 1 activities. So they were great until they got to post, and suddenly, oh, we're not experienced here, which is a great
Right.
way to learn, right? Then there's our team who started to film, and we all went, why does this look so bad? Who did set? No one did set design. Okay, so nobody did set design. All right, got it. All right, we spent 3 hours lighting, and nobody thought to put anything else in that scene whatsoever. Okay, all right, we'll fix it in post. And I know people get scared when they hear that. We shot our entire film under the "we'll fix it in post." So Sunday rolls
We
around.
did.
Yeah.
I was a part of that. I remember.
Yes, Ryan was a part of that.
They're like, we're in St. Louis, and we have this shot, and they're by the arch, but it's low, or it's a high angle, from a high angle. So it just looks like they're walking on a lawn. Can you put them in front of the arch? So,
True story.
yes, we can.
True story. We drove to St. Louis to
Show a
take that
picture.
shot only to fake it in post.
Show it.
That's the
I'm very proud. That was one
yeah.
of my favorites.
it's the biggest failure ever.
Yeah.
we
Check
need
the camera.
We need an on-location crew to go to St. Louis and they come back without a shot of the
Yeah.
arch.
Yeah. It was
And then, like,
astounding.
meanwhile, like we have a great location. And that was as a producer too. We had different ideas, and we were like, no, we're all inexperienced at this. I want two locations tops. We're not going to drive all over the place in Milwaukee. So, and we had nice set design and good costuming. I haven't thought about that. Like so many things, our production looked really, really good until day 2. And then
So that was a great
shit started
experience
hitting the fan.
for us as directors.
This just became explicit.
Yes. They were just beep.
It was a great experience for us as directors to have those handicaps, and that's what we took away from Milwaukee 48. We didn't win anything, we didn't place anything. There were some friendships that were actually lost. There are people that no longer talk to each other. Nobody on the inner circle of firmament by any means, but it was traumatic, and that's when. And nothing against you, and certainly nothing against me, because I'm not going to throw myself under the bus. That's where you need that strong producer. You need a strong producer to keep things from going off the rails.
The other thing that happened for our team, which was a fault of, I feel like this is the Milwaukee 48 was scheduled for Father's Day weekend. We couldn't find an editor. Every single editor that we knew was doing something with their dads or was a dad, and we were going in, how long? I feel like we had 2 weeks and we still had no editor. And I'm like, well, we're not going to make this. TC's like, I can sort of edit. Candy tried and she freaked out and was like, absolutely not, like under the time, and then all of a sudden TC's
You get very
like,
fertile when you're an editor.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
Yes.
Yeah.
TC's
Yes,
like,
we
David
do.
Geisler. So we got David Geisler.
And like I said,
And he's been a great addition to the team, actually.
he is. We decided pretty much early on we're going to fix all this in post. Why do we say we're going to do some of that in post? Sometimes it's time management. Sometimes it takes too long to figure out how to do it practically, or maybe we can't do it as impressively practically. So it's usually a director's call, but sometimes it's more about time and assets. And the director might be thinking about how am I going to get a performance out of this person, and not necessarily thinking about how are we going to time box that into the 3 hours we have. So is it true that the producer might be the one who says we'll fix it in post? Sure. Depends on the producer's perspective.
Sure.
Sometimes you'll have a producer who wants to get everything absolutely right in camera.
Well, I feel like you do it right too a lot now, where you ask the question of the director of me or camera team, is this something that we could do in post? When we started off, it was a lot more from all of us of we could fix it in post. And after a week or two of that, John's like, I don't think so. I don't think I want 200. John's the director's special effects supervisor. So. He's like, I don't think we want a couple hundred shots, special effects shots to do here. Let's not keep adding these things. So now, a lot of the times the language that you have, and I think that's appropriate for a producer, is, hey guys, we're an hour behind. Yeah. Can we do this in post? Can we do it later? Can we, it might not be post. It might be later. It might be, tomorrow. Can we push? Look at the schedule. And that's things that all of us who have hands on cameras or puppets can't think about. All we have the mental energy to think about this one task.
Right.
And so it's so important to have that person thinking about, all the
one
pieces.
thing that was really actually valuable for me as a producer was I sat down and started doing some of the early timeline edits just to put it together and see what it was starting to look like. And that's when it hit me, special effects. Oh my God, my timeline has 72 green screen shots in it. So as I'm starting to rework the edit, I'm thinking, if I take this angle, which doesn't have green screen, how does it affect the story? Am I negatively affecting the story? If I'm not negatively affecting the story, I'm going to swap it out, because that's going to save us time in post working on even more green screens. And then we come back to the next shoot, and that's in the back of my mind of going, okay, let's make sure we're not overdoing all the green screen we have to do.
And I think on the set, after you've been shooting for a whole day and you're tired and it's been, it feels like it might be easier to, can we just do this in post? And it's like, if we just move that wall over, move that set piece, or cover that thing with a curtain or whatever, that will resolve the problem. And it's just hard to think that way when you're tired. You're just like, well, let's just get it and we can do it later. When it's like, okay, just taking a 5-minute break and moving this around will resolve that.
Which is, again, and something I've seen Julia do very well on set with keeping people happy and morale and energized. Is at the end of the day, when you start having to make those decisions, if everybody's cranky and going, oh, screw it, just do it. As opposed to, okay, we know it's the end of the day, but let's be happy. Let's look at this with fresh eyes. Let's not half-ass or mail this in at this point. And I really look at that as a producer's job to, like I said, make sure everybody is engaged in the right way so you're not mailing things in at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Jeff, you gestured twice. Once I interrupted you, the other time John did.
I've gestured like a handful of times, but everybody just keeps jumping in. It's just like, okay, you
gotta
guys
get in
keep
there.
talking.
This is
This
is like Africa.
Maybe it's the
Like,
chair, because
you
that's
gotta
where
kill.
I sat.
Hey,
for the
hey,
past 2
hey,
times.
everybody, can we just cut it for a second and give Jeff the
Or be
chair?
killed.
Can we just give Jeff the chair for a second here? Go
Or
ahead,
be
Jeff.
killed. Wait, you need another chair?
I'm big.
Like, how does that work?
Jeffro.
No, actually, in all fairness, yeah, you already covered everything I was going to say, so never mind.
Ditto, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Tritto.
Good.
Tritto.
Tritto.
Everybody covers it. It's cool.
It also comes, I think it's another basic point is make sure there's a reason that you're doing, like a good reason that you're doing something. So why are we doing a visual effects shot here? Because we physically can't pull this off. Or because it's a magical thing that's taking place and it doesn't exist in the real world, and not because we're just too lazy to put whatever in the background at this point.
Or, there's no way you're going to have your puppeteer somehow balanced behind a tree branch hanging above the ground, and you need to digitally remove his
Like, are you
fat
comfortable?
butt.
Are you comfortable? You're not doing it right.
I'm not doing
And
it.
then
TC and I have come to a pretty
Giant
good place
ladder.
where we can talk about what's the value in it. Like TC will run through a storyboard with me, and he'll say, and such is going to do this. And, I might say, why are you having that particular motion? Well, because this is what I want to accomplish. We can use that same type of, thought process as we're going through this. Why do you want to do it practically? Okay, we can accomplish the same thing in post in 2 seconds versus 45 minutes of setup.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. We can do this in camera now in 5 minutes versus having a special effects person spend an hour on it. But TC and I actually have really kind of gotten that dialogue down. I mean, he leads it. He kind of usually comes to me as more of a sounding board. He's got that creative vision to it. But I know he always keeps that in the forefront of his mind. Is this helping the movie?
Right.
That's the number one question. Are we helping or hurting? And we make that decision. Okay, the movie will get better if we do this. And then I have to say, but it's going to take 7 hours. The movie will be almost as good, and we can do it in an hour. And then we negotiate.
I think it's the lesson that we learned from episode 7, Star Wars. See that? Yeah, you were one of our studio audiences when we started talking about Star
Yes.
Wars.
Yeah.
And I think you were giving us the clap to not talk about Star Wars. But
Oh, no, not at all.
4, 5, and 6 being so practical, 1, 2, and 3 being so digital, now coming back to 7 with J.J. Abrams approaching it from a more practical first type of attitude. I think that's kind of what we did too. We started saying, we can do special effects on phones. We're hip kids. And, like coming from the attitude of a lot of digital stuff first and then realizing what that looks like in terms of workload, and then coming back around to, well, let's try our hardest to do everything in. I haven't turned this way the whole time. This is much nicer view over
Back
here.
to Jeff. Good job.
I don't know why I haven't done that. No offense to
Forget about
my
me.
male compatriots. But coming back around to starting the approach, having our approach be, can we do this practically? And how do we do that? Do we slide the set over? Try as we might to get Jeff up in a tree and hide him. It was impossible to do practical, so
Are you
we had
saying
to
I'm
have a
fat?
little special effect.
No, and
You can't fly. That's
true.
the problem.
PHAT.
I am fat dog.
Pretty hot and tempting for those who weren't born in the 90s or
Yes.
80s or when that was like the late 90s or early 2000s, wasn't it?
never mind having your AD, which was me, and the producer, because I don't think it was a Friday we were doing that, going, this isn't safe. Please don't let him fall. Please don't. Jeff, are you okay?
There was
Terrifying.
wind. And
Oh,
it
yeah, that was a
starting
Friday
to
afternoon,
rain.
It was a
right?
Friday
It was a
afternoon.
Friday
yeah.
afternoon, yep.
Everything
ladder-
went well.
All that was so dangerous.
The ladder was on an incline. I was straddling the top of the ladder.
It was
leaning
fine.
against
And then-
the tree branch.
Oh, so you had something to hold on to.
Right.
So you're
TC
fine.
my
is
elbows.
There's a
Jeff,
picture all of a
Jeff,
sudden.
can you do both puppets up at the same time? And I'm like, no, because when he falls, he's not gonna be able to brace himself. TC's like, oh, you can do it. Jeff's like, I can do it. He's being like the good soldier. I'm like, panic attack.
And
but
Team
we
Camera's
did
like,
it.
are you up there yet? Come on,
Yeah.
come on.
And then let's put a green screen in front of me so I can't see anything that's going on. And finally, can you make the puppet fall
That's
Yes,
right. You had
that's
to
right.
eject
He had to
the
eject
puppet.
Chester.
That's right.
Yeah,
while still puppeteering?
right.
Jeff, let me
Scarlett.
just tell you,
And-
being the good soldier doesn't always pay off.
No.
No,
Trust
it
me,
doesn't.
been there.
But it worked that day. But
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
really
that's
great
that's
photo.
going to be an amazing shot.
yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
I hope it doesn't get edited out.
Can we do the
Yeah.
behind the scenes? Can
It's
you show
terrible.
that just a clip?
I'm sure we probably could.
With magic.
I just
Rick
stop
rolled.
throwing that. Yeah, every clip is just Rick roll for this episode. That's every clip. Screw you guys, it's all Rick rolling.
Never gonna
joke.
ask for clips.
Never gonna no.
On that note, there's another. That
Wait,
was
is
another-
now when people just start disappearing?
Oh, that thing again.
Except nobody had to leave. Yeah, I guess. Do you guys
Well, with that, I'm gonna
have
head
any
out.
imparting wisdom or closing wisdom to impart, which we'll call imparting wisdom?
I just thought of Hi Neighbor again and some conversations you and I had around also like having really big ideas about things from your directors and writers and saying, guys, I'm going to be your like Debbie Downer. And I felt like for Hi Neighbor, some of me was like the practical one, like, no. Like being able to really
no.
compassionately say, no, we're not going to do that. Like, no, I love the enthusiasm, but no, we're not going to do that.
You know, that's
And-
a good point you bring up because the producer role can be kind of mentally lonely.
You know, I was going to ask:
Yeah.
do you find it thankless?
It's
Yeah.
it is because
less so
Hey,
though. I think
thank
being-
you guys so much
No.
for all your work.
I have to say-
sincerely.
I think
sincerely.
because I can compare assistant directing to producing, and the thing about producing is that you're kind of on the top, so people come to you. When you're AD, I feel like being an AD is much harder and much less thankless than being producer.
Much less thankless, so more thankful.
No, like there's no appreciation for AD.
Oh, my head hurts. Stop it.
Yeah.
More
No,
thankless.
Let's do more. Let's have more negatives so
Yeah.
people don't know what we're talking about. Being assistant director I feel less appreciated as an AD than I do as a producer.
yeah,
So
because with
just
the
to throw it
producer
out
you
there.
get a little bit of clout of being
You
able to
do.
make the decisions and things like that.
Yeah,
But
and like you get to go pick up the award. You know, if you win, you get to get
Ah.
the award.
But
I
you
mean,
do live a little bit on an island, and what was
Yeah.
kind of neat with Hi Neighbor is you had reservations about.
Wait,
so that,
you live on an island?
Yeah.
Wait, I
that's
want to be a
what- that's
producer.
what gets to happen.
with
Yeah.
with Daryl Rivas.
Way better than this.
So where I'm going with this is that there was this idea that we might use Aaron in London to shoot some footage and have it be part of our movie. And Julia was nervous about that
Yeah, I
idea,
was-
right?
Yes.
And as a producer, a lot of times you see people really excited about something, and you have to be the voice of reason, going, I don't know if this is going to work. So I came to Julia and said, here's my concerns with it. This puts Aaron as a one-man band in the middle of the project, and we have to create something, and we have to
Yeah.
rely on her, and it has to be at a production value. So we're picking one person to create a part of our movie that will be at the same production value as everything else in the entire movie.
It's not like she's doing anything like
Right.
going
Right.
to grad school
Amongst
or
other
something.
things, exactly.
Exactly. So what was neat about that, though, because we were kind of co-producing this, was that she had her suspicions. I confirmed her suspicions, and it was easier to do your job. And a lot of
Yes.
times as a producer, your ideas and suspicions you have to act on, you don't have somebody to lean on.
Yeah.
You can lean on your director, you can lean on your DP and say, hey, what do you think of this? But at the end of the day, you have to stand up in front of the crew and go, hey, that thing everybody loved, that's not happening. I'll try to tell you why, but
Yeah.
it's not happening. So it's not necessarily thankless, but it's it takes a little getting used to. And I mean, it might be part of the reason that outside of my filmmaking world, I do artistic hobbies that are just me and nobody else, because that's where I get my outlet. Because as a producer, I really don't get much creative outlet in this process. I'm not complaining about that, but I just came to the reality of it that the producer is not in the artistic side of it, other than some small decisions, and you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's interesting is that I don't see a lot of female producers. I'm so glad I remembered this because I would have.
Oh.
There's not a lot of female producers out there, and I think in general, what I see in filmmaking is like a microcosm. I think of like sort of greater society is that sometimes I feel like if it's my idea, it's not as respected because I'm a woman,
Right.
and that fires me up a lot because I think sometimes I've seen people defer to you more than to me. Or do things, and that gets so part of it
Let's
for me
beat 'em
is
up.
like
We're on your side.
Oh, thank you. One is being better at, and we've had conversations, speaking my voice more, of like being as the AD for PK, being like, Julie, you can be harder on people. You can like do that. So that's helping me grow as a person. But I do think like for the Girl Scouts, we did Backflip did a Girl Scouts booth last week, and it was awesome. But really want to encourage women that you can have roles like this, but that there are some things inherently about that can be really challenging in terms of feeling like you're on an island. Like if you as a male feel like you're on an island, for me sometimes it's like it can be a little lonelier. So you do have to have, you talk about other hobbies, and I'm like, I don't have any other hobbies because I love it so much. But
And football.
So that's true.
Are there any lessons you've learned, now that you are producing a lot and working with a lot of male creative teams
Sure.
to deal with men and, typical attitudes, or anything like that?
One is you have to have a tough.
She
No,
just
it's-
tells us to shut up every like 10 minutes.
I've like one of an example is first of all I think you just have to have a tough skin whether you're a male or a female because I think there are men who are also sensitive and you can't talk about being sensitive because it's not masculine,
That's
you know.
me.
So
I'm
I
the
think you have to have a
sensitive one.
tough
Don't talk about
skin, and I think you have to have a place at home that you go to that you feel and you have to have confidence. I mean, I have a lot. I know. I mean, the story was I called Ryan up and I'm like, let me tell you why I'm qualified to be a producer at Backflip, even though I have no direct experience.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did that.
He's like, I see that you're going to have a vacancy,
Yeah.
and here's why I will fill that vacancy, or
Yeah,
here's
it's
why I
pretty
would be
much-
good to fill that vacancy.
And I did that, which was very outside my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And so it goes to show that when you're maybe are unhappy in life, you push yourself to do things you wouldn't normally do because that would be something that I wouldn't normally do, but I did it. So I take some of that with. But I think, too, for women to say, for me to say, I feel really confident as a producer, does that mean I'm braggy? Am I being... she's being too assertive, and so those are things that I think we come up against, and I feel like very much so. I work in a space where I don't feel that way, but I do think that can be something that can bump up against. But to answer your question too, sometimes I'm like, last week I was like, I just need this file right now, and everyone's like laughing. I'm like, just stop that and give me my file, which was kind of fun. And in my mind, I'm like, this is a test. This is happening right now. This is a test.
This is a tantrum is what it is.
Yes. Yes, without being like, I'm like, this is happening. But so that's, I think, as a overall, it's interesting to see.
What I'm really curious in is, when PK does phenomenally and when the world changes around what firmament is and means today, and when I'm doing this full-time for a staff of people that I'm employing, how's that going to feel differently than working with volunteers? Because right now
Yeah.
I look at so much of what my
Chris,
job
that's
is
such a good point.
is social, is to keep people
Right.
happy, to make sure that they're doing what they want to do and find a home for them in a way that the
Mm-hmm.
work is satisfying. But when that dynamic changes, which you guys deal with employees, how do you act differently as a producer? Because then at some point I'm going to
I
turn to
think-
somebody and go,
I
"You
think
have
it's
to do
more.
this."
I think it's more similar than you would realize, because I think where I'm going to go with that and I'll try to keep it brief, is so when you're doing a project for free, we've talked before. We all learned this in film school, like feed your crew. Feed your
Right.
crew, because they have no other reason
Feed your crow.
to be there.
You hear that,
gotta
y'all? Feed your crow.
Feed your crew.
Yeah, feed your crow.
There's gonna be a YouTube song sensation in like 6 months because of
Hashtag
that.
feed your
your
crow.
crow.
Feed your crew. We're gonna be the first.
And okay, so there's that, and you have the social aspect. You have to manage people's happiness and make sure that they're excited and make sure that they're still behind the project. And when you have employees, people are paid and they're paid to be there, but I think we all at some point finally realize, after years of working, that all the cliches and all the old adages are true. You have to enjoy what you do.
Yes.
And so you're like, okay, well, I'm getting paid money, but this sucks. It
Mm-hmm.
sucks to work with this guy, and it's whatever. You still have to have the same things. You still have to be like, okay, what's our culture like working here in this, making these films, making the, whatever it is that we're producing, and making sure that we're working together as a team, and making sure that, everyone's still enjoying it, because it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, you got to get paid for your day job, but like, if it's if it's killing you to do it, you're going to find something else to do. So it's more similar than you might think.
Well, and it's about accountability and respect, and you can have that with friends, and you can have that on free projects. And we always, even in volunteering and stuff, expect respect and that trust, accountability as well. And that was one great thing that Julia did that made me like her more for the producer job. Was during one of our shoot days, I had some mix up and was an hour late. Which, if you've ever worked in production, kind of the saying goes, early and on time and late, late and fired. And I certainly take that pretty seriously when I'm hiring a crew, and took it very seriously when I was late. And as soon as I figured it out, started texting and calling and let them know when I would be there. But then, Julia let me know that was not okay. And even though as a friend and a free project, essentially, volunteering and things like that, without that accountability, no one's gonna do the work that they're supposed to. And without that respect that you had for me, you wouldn't have written a nice email. And without the respect that I had for you, I wouldn't have responded positively. And because we had all that, then I was properly chastised and encouraged, and we were able to move forward professionally. And I think
Julia actually said to me,
that's great.
I think I'm going to get the job, but I'm really worried about the email.
No.
Did you really?
No, I just made that up.
She's like, screw that.
No.
Take it.
No, that didn't happen.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts for you, or being a male in a male world, a middle-aged white male, like
Yeah, like
fighting from the bottom?
It's funny when you talk to people, though, because I've been telling people I'm wearing my producer hat, and that's been helpful too. Because I know Julia well before Firmament, outside of this stuff too, and we'll be just talking things at volleyball, and I say, we talk about something this week, and I'm putting on my producer hat, or TC moves in.
You're
with
like, I'm
me.
putting on my producer hat. Do you think you should be drinking that?
Yeah,
Right.
Is this a good choice?
It's going to make you look puffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing
And
with
then
chess.
we'll have to fix it in post.
Right.
And actually, what's most interesting to
That's
me is
great.
I have to do it in reverse when I'm talking with my wife, who's Jess, who's
Oh
our,
my gosh.
she
Yeah.
does our set design, and she's one of our primary puppeteers. So there's a lot of time we'll be talking about PK, and her response will be, I don't know, maybe giving advice back to me or whatever. And I'm like, no, hold on, producer hat off. I'm bitching as a person right now. That's what I need. And
I don't need solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just need you to listen.
And that's important too, because like you said, we can sometimes feel when we're on an island. I'm sure you talk to Kurt about
Yes.
things. I talk to my wife about things.
Yep.
But having that kind of outlet's been really good. So it's good to be clear about what role you're playing and when. And I was going to make a point before about how accountability, how we all take this serious. We have a weekly team meeting where we dial in and we discuss what's coming up, what's news, what's behind us, and things like that. And we identified that there were people who were playing key roles in the team and needed to start being invited. Like, for instance, I don't know if Chris was on board right from the beginning.
Yeah.
We added Jeff to the team meetings because
I really need to start doing those again.
Yeah.
Who?
This was a passive aggressive approach to get Jeff to come back.
Nicely done.
Well, we'll see if it was nicely done.
Yeah. He probably won't make any difference tomorrow.
Oh, you'll be on the call.
Okay.
Oh,
but it's
snap.
But it's those kind of
No
things
coffee
as a
for you.
those kind of things as a producer is identifying the people who want to be involved and then bringing them closer and then giving them strong pieces to play. Let them put their fingerprints on the film. When we're done with this, everybody here at this table is going to be able to go, yeah, that's my film. I had a part of that. So as a producer, I look to make sure people have the opportunity to feel that way. So
Enjoy your burrito, everyone.
No. We'll fix it in post.
Great.
Bye, Phil.
See you, Phil. That was Phil who just walked in front
Phil,
of our line.
you have to say goodbye. You
Phil.
feel like a social jerk. I'm not a social jerk.
I was so sure. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna be very careful.
No. Can't do it.
Like a break
Perfect.
so that it doesn't disturb the audio.
this may be the last time anybody sees Phil, just saying.
Right.
And now he's gonna
He's a blob.
Okay, now
There
that
you
might
go.
be the
Wave
last
to Phil. If anybody's waving, that's awesome.